It's time for munching and mating in the macrocystis, or giant kelp, with your host, Dr. Bill Bushing. One of the best things about my job is that when I go to the office, I don't have to wear a tie with my suit. Wetsuit, that is. In the previous episode on the northern elephant seal, Marungia angustirostris, we focused on the individual, its physical features, geographic distribution, history, migration, and feeding patterns. In this episode, we will look at the critical behavior necessary for the continuation of the species itself, mating. Females may reach sexual maturity as early as age 2, but all are sexually mature at 3 to 5 years. Males aren't mature until 4 to 6 years, and some later than that. Even after they reach maturity, males may not mate until they are 9 or 10, due to the dominance of older bulls. They reach their reproductive peak between 9 and 12, and often by 13, they are over the hill and do not defend harems. Large males are the first to haul out at the breeding grounds in December. The dominant males remain on the beach the longest, until March, and fast the entire time, losing up to a ton of weight. Some sources suggested that they may lose half their mass, but this more likely refers to the nursing females. Because of the long fast, they generally try to conserve energy as much as possible while on shore. Juveniles may be on the beach from late September through November, but usually leave when the adult males show up. Males compete for beach space in various ways. Although competition may involve actual fighting when combatants are closely matched, it most often involves just threats and vocalizations. Younger bulls are often simply chased away. Bulls create powerful sounds using their exaggerated proboscis. They may create a rolling, metallic sound that resonates and is known as a clap threat. The male issuing this challenge rears up on his hindquarters with the forward half to 2/3 of his body up in the air. If the threats and vocalizations don't cause a challenger to back off, the bulls resort to physical combat. They use their sharp canine teeth to inflict often bloody blows on their opponent until one backs down. Bulls have a region of thickened, scarred, keratinized skin on their neck, chest, and shoulders. This shield often appears pink in color. However, such fights rarely result in death. A dominant or alpha male emerges from these challenges along with a few subordinate or beta males. Along the 6 miles of coast near Piedras Blancas, where I filmed, there are about 100 alpha males. The dominant male gets to breed with the most females, increasing the spread of his genes. He may dominate mating along his stretch of beach for up to 4 years and sire an estimated 200 to 500 pups during that time. Thus, the dominance hierarchy determining which males get to mate is established each season. They do so not so much by defending actual territory, but by controlling access to the females in it. Mating is highly polygynous, meaning each male defends and mates with a group of cows that may number 30 to 100. One source suggested that because the alpha bulls are often very large, they can't defend many females and may have only a dozen in their harem, but this does not seem to have been borne out by my observations. Most copulations are done by a small number of males. Males who can't establish their own harems wait on the periphery of the group and try to mount nearby females. When a subordinate male does attempt to mate, the female often issues a loud, bawling vocalization that causes the dominant male to come running. Kind of. Sadly, most males die before reaching sexual maturity, and some of those that do survive never get a chance to breed. The bulls are soon followed by the pregnant females who come ashore to give birth. The first pup is born as early as the female's 2nd year, but sometimes not until their 4th or 5th year. The pups could not be born at sea because they do not instinctively know how to swim. Cows arrive from mid-January to early February. They give birth 2 to 7 days after arriving at the rookery. Normally there is a single pup born each year, but occasionally there are twins. The birthing process takes less than an hour. Pups are born either head or tail first. The newborn is about 4 feet or 1.2 meters long and weighs 70 to 75 pounds or 30 to 35 kilograms at birth. Females usually give birth every year of their adult life until they die. The mother and offspring form a strong bond immediately, using vocalizations and nuzzling. The cow calls to her pup when they are separated, and the youngster calls to its mother when they are stressed or also when prodding the mother to nurse. Births are often heralded by flocks of seagulls, which quickly congregate at the site. The seal placenta is a protein-rich food for these rats of the sea. Females may get aggressive after giving birth and be extremely defensive of their pups. When another female approaches, they may initially threaten them with an open-mouthed growl. They may be equally aggressive in defending the beach around their pups. A female may also bite another pup if it approaches too closely. Sometimes these bites can be fatal if directed at the pup's head. The pups are the only elephant seals not fasting during the birthing and breeding period. Their mothers nurse them for about 4 weeks. The pup may gain as much as 10 pounds each day due to the high fat content of the milk, which may begin at about 12%, but increases to 55 to 60% fat by the end of nursing. During this period, the mother may lose half her weight, converting blubber into food for her pup, as well as relying on it for her own sustenance. By the end of the month of nursing, the pup has grown to 250 to 350 pounds in weight. However, if a pup is separated permanently from its mother, it may not survive. Orphan pups may try to find another female to nurse them, but most other females reject a pup that is not theirs. However, some may adopt and nurse them. Occasionally a pup will nurse from 2 or even 3 different females, called milk stealing, and these may end up weighing 600 pounds when finally weaned. During the last week of nursing, the mother goes into estrus, mates with 1 or more males, and soon goes off to sea, abandoning her baby. The pups are weaned rather abruptly and have to face the harsh, cruel world on their own. At this point, the pup is not able to swim and feed. It has to live off its own blubber reserves for 2 or 3 months. During this period, it gradually learns to swim and feed itself. Initially, the youngsters are afraid of the water. They form groups on the beach and gradually overcome their fear and practice swimming. This also helps them build the necessary muscles and coordination, as well as allowing their muscles and blood to develop an increased capacity to store oxygen for their lives out diving at sea. After being weaned, the pup also molts its long, dark black fur, which is replaced by a silvery gray one with shorter hairs like those of the adults. The young pups are quite vulnerable to predation when they venture out into the water. Great white sharks will sometimes wait offshore for them to enter. They may also be crushed to death by the adult bulls when they are fighting. Mating begins in January and peaks in mid-February. As mentioned earlier, the female comes into estrus a few days before the pup is weaned and copulates with 1 or more males. When a male wants to mate, he throws one of his flippers over the female's body and grabs her neck with his teeth. Mated females may show scarring around the neck from these love bites. The female often resists, shaking her body back and forth to try to slip out of the bull's grasp. When she does this, the male may climb partially on top of her to hold her down. Females remain receptive for only a few days. Despite this, the annual pregnancy rate of the females is said to be around 95%. Over her lifetime, she may give birth to as many as 10 pups. Although the egg is fertilized, it does not immediately begin development. Instead, it attaches outwardly to the wall of the uterus. Implantation in the wall occurs several months later, after the female has fed at sea and recovered her strength. By nursing for 4 weeks without feeding, and thereby losing much of her energy reserves, it is thought the female may be too weak to immediately sustain a developing embryo. Therefore, the embryo undergoes delayed implantation. It lasts about 3 to 4 months, giving the mother a chance to recover. Once implanted, gestation time is about 7 to 8 months, resulting in a total time from conception to birth of 11 months. This also ensures that birthing and mating can occur at the same time each year, since there is a 1-month lag between the newborn pup appearing and the mother mating. In the earlier episode on elephant seals, The extreme commercial exploitation of this species for oil rendered from its blubber was discussed, as well as the species' recovery from near extinction. As the population recovered and their numbers increased, they outgrew the carrying capacity of the early rookery on Guadalupe Island off Baja, Mexico. Initially, new rookeries were established on other islands off Mexico, but within a few decades, the population entered U.S. waters and re-established breeding grounds here. From the initial recovery on Guadalupe Island, new ones formed on San Benito Island in 1918, San Miguel Island off Southern California in 1926, the Los Coronados Islands south of the border, and Santa Barbara Island in 1948, San Nicolas Island in 1949, Ano Nuevo by 1955, South Farallon Island in the late 1950s, the mainland adjacent to Ano Nuevo Island in 1965, Cape San Martin, Gorda, and the Point Reyes Headland in 1981, Santa Rosa Island in 1985, and Piedras Blancas in 1990. Other breeding locations include Cedros Island, Natividad Island, and San Clemente Island. A few sites in Oregon, Washington, and British Columbia may be in the process of establishment now. Most elephant seals return to the rookery where they were born. There is almost no dispersal between the Mexican breeding sites and those in California, so the two stocks are believed to be fairly distinct. However, there is some gene flow between adjacent rookeries, especially in central and northern California. With the California population growing at rates of up to 20 to 30% in the earlier years of recovery, and 4 to 9% in more recent years, spread of the species across a wider geographic area was predictable as the seals re-entered historical rookery areas and established new ones on the mainland, with the threat of predation there largely gone. Each rookery generally has a limited space for the seals to haul out. Since they do not feed during their stay on land, the carrying capacity of a site is largely limited by available space. I compare this to busy summer days on the beaches in my hometown of Avalon. Visitors and residents alike go out early in the morning and place towels and other beach gear in their selected spots. Latecomers are forced to seek out less desirable beach areas. Let us look at one example of how a new rookery evolves over time. The one on Ano Nuevo Island has been studied for nearly 50 years by Professor Bernie LeBoeuf of the University of California at Santa Cruz. Elephant seals first arrived there in 1955, but the first pups were not born there until 1961, which was the year LeBoeuf began his long-term study. The high rate of colony growth was driven primarily by younger females from other locations, rather than through births at the new rookery. These females sought out new areas to give birth because they were being dominated by older females at their original rookeries and were experiencing reduced weaning success. Some reports suggest that Ano Nuevo reached its carrying capacity in the late 1970s, when about 1,000 pups were born each year. However, birthing data suggest even higher pup production in the period from 1995 to 2006. That number has declined since then, and females are now seeking out new breeding grounds. Certainly one of the biggest threats to the elephant seal is predation by great white sharks. However, this is part of the natural balance in any ecosystem, and the population certainly appears to be healthy today. Another threat comes from the genetic bottleneck they experienced when the total population was cut down to below 100 animals by commercial exploitation. The drastic loss of genetic biodiversity in the species may have left them more vulnerable to disease and natural disasters. Currently, they suffer from several biological factors, including northern elephant seal skin disease, pneumonia, and parasites like lungworm. Global scale weather events like El Nino, and possibly global climate change, may also create serious issues. About 80% of the pups born during the 1997-98 El Nino are believed to have perished. Fortunately, threats from humans have largely ceased. Although boat collisions do kill some each year, and approximately 100 die each year due to entrapment in fishing nets, these are relatively small numbers compared to the overall population. The northern elephant seal is one feel-good example of how a species may rebound from near extinction. Hopefully, with adequate conservation efforts, we will see more follow this path instead of disappearing from the planet forever.